Kia ora, my name's Soto, you can call me Neeks, and I really like The Legend of Zelda. Before I even started collecting, I bought and played the devil out of Breath of the Wild, as did the rest of the known world evidently, and I seriously loved that game. So much so that I bought all the other 3D Zelda titles too. I loved the unending variety of choices you have to approach every encounter. I loved the subtle storytelling through the main character's lost recollections. I loved the Tabanthan wheat. There truly is so much to love about this title, and it goes on for dozens of hours before you truly start to get a proper glimpse of the scale of this game. It is massive. Countless NPCs, heaps of settlements, a huge variety of regions to explore. It really does feel like an unending experience a lot of the time. And in amongst the vast infinity that is this game's contents, there's a small but incredibly personal journey that stands out to me. And it takes place in a rather unassuming little settlement called Hateno Village. As you're wandering through this lovely small community filled with fun and eccentric characters, you meet perhaps the second most striking character design in the village. This is Bolson, and he informs you that this house that you're standing next to is scheduled to be torn down. But he gives you the option to buy the house in exchange for 3,000 rupees and 30 bundles of wood. It's old and shabby and clearly in need of some interior design work, but Bolson gives you the option all the same. And beyond all reason, this little optional side part that you can choose to completely ignore is the most impactful bit of this game to me. Because what happens is, you can buy this house, buy some display cases and furnishings, and then suddenly, this is no longer an old abandoned husk of a building once loved. It's a home. You don't need to do this. The game's world and story don't reward you for making this house your home. The reward you receive is purely personal. In the wild, you can set up camp and sleep anywhere, sit next to a fire and spend the night under the stars, or rent a bed at an inn or at one of the stables around Hyrule. So why would you go down this totally frivolous path? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the reward for this order of events is a personal one. Yes, you could just light a fire and sleep along the trail to your next adventure, but when you buy this home, purchase a bed and the rest of its furnishings, then this place becomes yours. Not just a temporary place to lay your head, but your place. You know? Sure, you could just keep your weapons in your inventory waiting to be used, but what about those weapons that just mean a little bit more to you? The ceremonial trident or the scimitar of the Seven. They aren't exactly the best for combat, but they were given to you by the champions. You can't just throw them away. So what, you just let them take up valuable inventory space forever? That is the dilemma that this house aims to solve. That disconnected feeling you have with each campsite you establish. That existential knowledge that eventually you're going to have to say goodbye to your favourite weapon. In terms of gameplay, these are non-factors. Yet it means so much to me. In my case, I was able to say that I honoured the champions' legacies by treasuring the gifts they gave to me. The heirlooms that they passed down to their descendants, their peoples, the symbols that represent their sacrifice. They are honoured within the walls of my humble little home. And every time I enter Hateno Village, I get a little twang of relief in my heart. I've come home. It's a place of comfort, and that's something you scarcely feel in a game like this, and I think that's why I value it so much. Something else I've always valued is the memory of my childhood home. We lived in a little house up a mountain. It was my home of 8 years and serves as an easy source of nostalgia. Whenever I see a building with high ceilings or a maroon-coloured roof, I always think of that house. But every time I go back there, I always see things differently. The ceiling just isn't quite as high as I remember. The roof looks pretty faded nowadays. Things are different now. Or, more accurately, I am different now. I've grown up, even though it didn't feel that long ago, honestly. Which reminds me of the next Zelda game that I played after Breath of the Wild, which was Ocarina of Time. I run a series of streams on my Twitch called FFG, which stands for Friends Favorite Games, of course. It's a series where I play any game of my friend's choice right through to the end. And this guy right here, Kokiri, his favorite game is Ocarina of Time. So naturally, I started playing. And it is incredible. The adventure, the heroism, the stakes felt grand yet personal. The characters are beloved and held dear, and they feel important to you, the player. And nowhere is that more felt than in Kokiri Forest. At At the beginning of the game, you are awakened by Navi. It's a familiar feeling, a cozy dwelling filled to the brim with personality. The bed is a perfect fit, the mirror on the wall greets you every morning, and the balcony is a lofty height compared to your own. This is home. But inevitably, you must leave, to save Hyrule, nay, the world. As Link goes off, he faces trial after trial, hardship after hardship. He fights threats far above his punching weight. He wages battle against inconceivable monsters and comes out on top. He fights to keep the world out of the hands of Ganondorf, an adult with the power of an entire race behind him. Yet at the end of each venture, Link always returns to his little home of Kokiri Forest. When you save and quit, the next time you reload your game, Link will be right here. Just like any child who's off on an adventure, he always goes home where it's safe. Back to the comfort and security of your own house. But nothing ever stays the same, does it? Halfway through the game, Link grows 7 years older. He's bigger and stronger now, and he's able to use a vast variety of tools and weapons. He can lift his shield finally, he can use the Master Sword. Growing older really does have some perks. But once you make your way back to Kokiri Forest, where your home and friends reside, you come to realize the oddest thing about growing up. Things change. Just like I did when I returned to my childhood home, Link comes back to find that his old house just doesn't feel right. The raised deck at the entrance of the house isn't quite as tall as you remember, the bed is far too small to sleep on comfortably, and the mirror doesn't even reach your chin. And what's more, the next time you load your file, Link no longer starts in Kokiri Forest. This isn't his home anymore. He's grown out of it. This place is now just a happy memory from times more peaceful. Sometimes, memories are all that we have to hold on to. The flow of time is always cruel. Its speed seems different for each person, but no one can change it. A thing that does not change with time is a memory of younger days. Time passes, people move. Like a river's flow, it never ends. Which is why I decided to create a new home. One that's catered to my height and size, personalized to my habits, one which I can edit and modify as time goes on and as I change. A home which I can call my own at all times, at all stages of development. A home that's made out of shoeboxes. In The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, you're once again thrown into the Kingdom of Hyrule. This time it's the same world as Breath of the Wild. So that means you get to keep your old house, right? As you enter Hateno village, the town is different. Now, everyone has a more striking character design. There are more people here, there's a new governmental party attempting to take over. Everything has changed. Only this time, the change to your house is a different one. As you re-enter your old abode, you're greeted with no sign signifying this as Link's house. Your weapons cases are missing. There are pictures that I certainly don't remember hanging. What happened? Well, it turns out that Princess Zelda, newly freed from her 100-year bout with Ganon, has taken your house as her own. I mean, it makes sense. As her loyal knight, you would give her your home. As a story beat, it's perfectly logical. But here's the thing, Link isn't just being tossed around by the winds of change. He adapts. If you've played this title, you know that building temporary structures for your use is a massive part of the gameplay. So naturally, when our house is taken, we're gonna build a new one. If you've played Breath of the Wild, you mostly recognize this face. This is Hudson, a builder who founded Tarrytown and a close friend of Link's. If you come to this little town, you can speak to his wife to ask to begin construction on a home of your own. The home that you make is a perfect representation of who you are as a person. What you like, how much space you need, if you're into horses, all of it you can control. It's like your early adulthood homes, when you have enough money to spend on what you love and just deck the halls with it. For example, in real life, I have a bed, a wardrobe, a desk with a PC, and of course an entire wall filled to the brim with video games. Only the essentials. And in my home in Tears of the Kingdom, my house building list went bedroom? Check. Kitchen? Check. An entire floor dedicated to a whole bunch of awesome weapons I found? Mate, that's the first room I built. In this game, you can make your home look whatever way you like. You have absolute freedom. But some people never got that chance. Some people are forced to juggle jobs, education, and responsibilities with little to no time for themselves, and that's where Link finds himself in Majora's Mask. In The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, Link is taken far away from his home and must go on yet another adventure to stop the moon from crashing into the earth. In this endeavour, he's thrown into the land of Termina, where nothing is quite right. He's lonely, he's worn out, and he's desperate to go home, but he must save the planet. In a way, it mirrors how many of us feel when we're stretched thin, caught in an endless cycle of obligations without any sense of personal reprieve. My career is just too important. My education is just too important. My finances are just too important. I don't have the time to take care of myself. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. A happy life, which is what we all want, I'm sure, depends not on your money or your career or your education. It depends entirely on a healthy body, healthy mind, and having people who you love nearby. But most importantly, a happy life requires Yes, you can be happy while pursuing your goals, but we as humans need to feel at home in our lives. When we lose sight of that, we end up stuck in a cycle that looks a lot like Link's in Majora's Mask, constantly chasing something without ever truly feeling like we belong anywhere. It's all about making sure that what we need isn't being tossed to the side. Which is what makes the hero of Winds such a compelling character to me. In The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, Link is an absolute lazybones. He loves his sleep, he loves the comforts of his island home, and more than anything, he loves his family, his sister and his grandmother. It's here that Link is truly most at peace. So just imagine what kind of distress it would cause when they're taken away from him. His sister is stolen out of the air by a giant bird and he is fuming. He's so desperate to get her back that he's prepared to hurl himself off of a cliff to rescue her. His home, his island, and everything he knew are no longer his priority. His family comes first. In this game, Link has a good home, an island of people who know and care for him and his family, a warm shoreside cottage where a pot of soup is always simmering, and he leaves it behind to pursue what's truly most important to him. His family. Sometimes our duties demand that we leave our home behind. It's a painful choice, but one that we have to make. Your family still loves you, even when you're gone, and you have a place to return to, even when it seems far away. And while you're away, you always have something to remember them by. To me, Link's home in Wind Waker is representative of a family home. There's always food for you to eat and a bed to stay in. No matter what may come, you always have somewhere to go back to. In fact, I believe that that's what keeps Link going. He knows that what he's fighting for isn't just the world, but specifically, he's fighting for his home, his grandmother and sister, the community that makes him feel at home. He knows what he's fighting for, and as painful as it is, he knows he must step away from it in order to protect it. He is willing to put those things aside in order to put them ahead. Does that make sense? Home has a different meaning for everyone. A home to me might mean something totally different to you. Where you are now is probably completely separate from where you were growing up, and what makes those two locations your home may be entirely unrelated. And in the end, each and every one of the games discussed today represent a home in a totally different way. And when I play them, I treasure the homes that they give me. Thank you for watching. God bless you. I'll see you soon.